Clearing now, Captain. Definitely Federation starship. Accessing registry.
Looks like they had a rough ride.
NCC 1701 C. USS Enterprise.
Good evening. Welcome to the Sloppy Modeler as we embark on another adventure in starship modeling. My next choice for a subject is the Star Trek USS Enterprise 1701C, and I think this kit has been done frequently on YouTube, and it's a favorite of so many people just for the storyline in the Star Trek The Next Generation. With Tasha Yar redeeming her life, if you will, instead of being killed by a blob, but actually going back and helping out in this final battle of against the Romulans, where actually I believe she's captured and has a child, a daughter, who then comes back to haunt the Star Trek crew. Again, just excellent writing in the long run for Star Trek The Next Generation, which after the TOS probably is my favorite of the series out there. So I have chosen to go after this one. When I bought this, I actually also ordered the PNT Models decal kit for the Ambassador class, and I think essentially this gives you windows and lifeboats and the pieces across the back of the nacelles, maybe some work on the bridge and the strong back here for hull plating and so forth. I do intend to light this model, and I watched some excellent builds by both Boyd at TrekWorks. What a great job he does, and Interstellar Modeler, the work that he does. Those guys there's a reason that people are pros and a reason that people are amateurs, and I'm in that amateur scale. With no question. But here's a look at kind of the colors on the decals, and so I'll be using some from these, some from the original kit. But you can see the lifeboats have this bright yellow, and I do like the look of the strong back. And I think painting that would be an absolute challenge or nightmare. So we'll see what they look like in the kit. I've not had this open yet, but you know, and even like the phaser arrays here, I probably are, and just some of the other details. Here's your sensor array strips to go around the hull, and even the thrusters look like they're in. So this looks like a nice kit. I know that you have to trim these very close because there's no real carrier film on those, but I've used some of these PMT models decals before on a couple other kits, and I like them. So that is what's in store for the finish. Again, standard lighting for me. I will at best probably put a couple of beacons in here, but again, this is another practice for me. Eventually building up again to doing my refit. I have 3 of the refit kits to do, the big 350 from Polar Lights, and 2 of the kits from Polar Lights on the original series. And I want to do those extremely well, and so learning and honing modeling skills and painting skills and drilling skills, all of those things that you need to complete those kits and do them in a lit fashion is the reason I'm working on starting out with some of these other kits. Now, I know that some of the things that are a challenge for this model is painting around the hull because you've got one of the most unique paint schemes out there. You can't see the top of the hull here in any of the photos with any degree, but painting these lines around here can be a particular masking challenge, and I know that the gentleman at Interstellar Modeler did an awesome job when he did his using French curves, and I have a couple of those and I'll try to see what I can do to tape this off with as much skill set as possible. So with that, let's go ahead and open this up and pull it out of the shrink wrap. I'm not going to do an unboxing video per se, but I definitely want to just get my first impressions of the plastic that's in here and start maybe on what the direction is towards building this particular kit. And believe me, I have watched Boyd's work on this, and I've watched Interstellar Modelers work on this, and actually as I pull this open, I'll probably be looking for additional builds on YouTube for guys who have done it and done it well. So that we'll put that aside. So that is the opening of the kit. As you can see here, you've got your sensor deflector dish, and it looks like this might be a backing behind that, so I'm not sure how this goes. Little tiny dome and the Bassard collectors there in the front, and I don't know if you can see these in the back, but there are your 4 chiller grills that go in one piece. And I think from what I've seen, it's a bit of a challenge to marry up these sensor domes in the back, because they're completely in the back, and I don't know if I've got a photo of it. It doesn't appear to be so. In the back of it, they wrap around entirely, so you don't have a piece of white styrene or styrene to bury this into. It literally becomes a single piece, and so marrying those two up can be a bit of a challenge to not have a seam. There's nothing you can putty, of course, because it's clear, and off we go. So standard dome from Polar Lights, and this one has the solid bar, so I'll be replacing that with a hollow tube, and then for the base, it's the large size base that goes with that. And I don't think I'm going to go with an elaborate base. I'll have to come to that at a later time, see where that comes into. But there may be enough room to put those little switches in, and I don't want to do like I did with my runabout, where I did 4 switches. I might just have this as one switch, powers everything up, and then maybe a one switch for the momentary switch for the beacon to change out that pattern. And for the most part, I think I'm going to go simpler rather than more complex on the lighting of this. Now, pulling this out, one thing I noticed immediately is that the hull assembly is much thinner than what I had anticipated, even for a 1/1400 scale. This seems to be very sleek. I was anticipating a much thicker much thicker primary hull. Therefore, I think there's going to be a challenge with correct placement of the wires and the lights in here, and pulling electrical through the neck and then getting it into out here in these areas. I notice the bottom has just a few windows around the bottom section, and then some more here spaced in that section there. And the top has got a ring around the hull, or around the bridge, and then another ring around here. I'm not going to pull it out of the plastic yet. No reason to get oil and everything else off from my fingers. And there are some windows in the where the sensor ring goes, in the side of that. The seam looks like it's going to go together fantastically once that gets put in place. And the phaser arrays are really finely detailed, so that's pretty nice. The lifeboats on here. Now, one of the things I'm noticing here out of the gate is that these lights are very, very tiny. And I've seen Lou Dalmasso talk about the scale of these 1400 kits. If you put a big 3mm bulb in there, he goes, in real life that light bulb would be 30 feet across, which is hilarious to me. So I think I'm going to have to figure out how to do a pinpoint of light to the front white and the navigation lights, and it looks like there's lights in the back here. So, and then the bridge has got really gorgeous detail from the vents in the back, a few lifeboats, and then these other, they might be lifeboats or something else around the front. I'll have to do some research there. And the bridge has got some really, really tiny windows there. So again, I'm going to look on YouTube on how some guys have done the actual bridge on that piece. And then the rest of the kit You've got the secondary hull with not too many windows, a few here, and I know that this gets a different color treatment here, and the rest of this gets painted. And the one thing I'm dreading, and really dreading, is figuring out how to do the two-color scheme in all of these grooves. And I've seen guys do it, and for me, that has fear and trepidation in its future for me to figure out how to do that. And I think those decals over the nacelles are going to work out all right. And then the other parts, this doesn't really look too complicated. I don't know how these nacelles go together. That's going to be a learning experience for all of us as it comes together for that. The instruction sheet is typical, I think, just a big giant single page from Polar Lights. And part one, the hull, and then the lower sensor dome, which is pretty tiny. Consider when you do like even a 5/32 scale original series, that dome is a lot larger, it seems like that. So that piece goes in, and then that is a paint program. Lower hull goes together, and again you've got your sensors, and it looks like the choice of two there on the deflector dish. The support for the center pole goes up into there, so that'll have to be drilled out, ready to accept wiring. It looks like some supports for the impulse engines, and then alternate parts for the Yamaguchi. The pylon assembly, this is one of the reasons I did this C rather than the D next, is because on the D you have to trench out the pylon assembly. Here you can actually bury those wires in this pylon, and so I can build that as a sub-assembly and connect it via the hull, secondary hull. Looks like some phasers go on. And then the nacelles, again, this is what I was talking about. Here you've got the fact that those clear parts will come together in the back without a cover on them, if you will. So that is going to be a challenge to figure out how to do that with as minimal a seam as possible. And then the two nacelles come together, so we'll clean all of that up. And then, of course, once you're at the final ship assembly, you've got the hull, the two nacelles, and then you've already done the pylons into the secondary hull, and then add to the display base. So that is the page one. Page two is the upside down. Page two is the battle damage decals, or you can do the optional original markings are also included in this. I am not going to do the battle damage on this, although it would be cool, but I am going to do the standard coming out of space dock on this when it hits. So painting and color guide is in place, and then here is the decals, and I probably, yeah, so this decal set, you can see all the battle damage here, and I just think that looks really, really challenging, because if you did that, in my opinion, like these two big giant 58 and 59 here, if you put those two on, you should have electrical conduit wire and electrical panels and damage that should be lit up. And I know Boyd did some awesome work with that on his Constellation for the big giant Doomsday machine. When he did his, he built in, and I way above my skill level, so I'm not going to do the battle damage. I'm just going to do the standard. I'm going to do the standard decals that make this a new kit out of space dock, and we will see how that goes. So that's the next model that we're going to tackle with the lighting system. And for my part, I'm looking forward to my first kit, and maybe looking forward to, it might be the wrong word, maybe approaching it with apprehension is probably a better phrase, because this is going to be the first kit where I'm really drilling all of these windows, and there are multiple videos online on how guys have done that, and you know, so therefore it's the exercise in patience and in purchasing very sharp number 11 scalpel bits for your X-Acto knife, And these are too small for a file, so you've got to do it all with drill bits and with your razor knife or your scalpel. And then, like I said, I'm not sure what these lights are here. There looks like 4 lights will go in the back. And the impulse engine comes off of the top of the secondary hull. So again, this is the approach of doing these lights with the windows. And the other question that I have out there, and maybe some of you guys can feed me some feedback if you would. I know that drilling out every hole is unrealistic on a spaceship, that it wouldn't have every light lit up every time. Instead, it would have, you know, like maybe crew lights on and crew lights off. So I would look for how I'm going to do that. Whether I drill it out or whether I don't drill it out and lay in a black paint to indicate a black glossy paint to indicate a closed or window light that's turned off the space, and then, you know, lit one a couple down. So that is the intent of putting this together, is getting my first experience with drilling the windows, lighting a kit, lighting the secondary hull, which has got some windows throughout, and then figuring out how to light block that with the sensor dish, and figuring out how to light that with the Bussard collectors and the chiller grills. And so it's going to be a big project for me. And again, I know that this paint job is really kind of crazy because it's got almost like a keystone look to it, where it comes in and pops up all throughout. And unless I miss my guess, it doesn't look like that really has a way to do that. It's not easily lined out in the hull itself, so I'm going to have to do the counts of, okay, so many panels out, and turn, and do that counting. So we will see. We'll see if I can manage to get this painted up. And it is a new set of skills for me for drilling windows. Painting on those curves is a new skill set that I have to work through. And then, you know, doing these tiny little lights in the hull, or in the bridge, and then figuring out again what the lights are for navigation on this unit. I'm not sure if the nacelles, yeah, so the nacelles have a navigation light at least on top, front and back, and not the bottoms. It doesn't appear, so the tops and bottoms will have lighting there, and then a light for the impulse engine. So if I look at the illustration on the top, because the illustration on the back doesn't do it. The illustration on the top shows a white light in the front. It shows your thruster here in yellow, lined in gray, so that'll be interesting. It shows a light at the top of that nacelle, and then the green and red nav lights. The Bussard collectors are lit up, the chiller grills are lit up, and then the dish is lit up. And that is going to be another exercise for me, as I've seen Lou Del Maso and Boyd both figure out how to gradient this paint job to where the outside is much darker than the inside. When I paint this, I'm going to probably paint this blue, and then have a light come on in the inside. I don't have an LED kit that would come up and then stay up and then fade down. I haven't got to that point. And then I'm not sure if that's a torpedo launcher there or where that is, and I don't know if that's just a star. Could be, probably is. But that's going to be on lighting this kit. So this is the USS Enterprise 1701C, NCC 1701C from Star Trek, the 1/1400 scale plastic assemble model kit from AMT Round 2. This is a sloppy modeler. It's about the last of July, and I anticipate probably a good month of putting this together. depending on time and bicycling and other adventures in summertime. Not to mention work getting in the way there here every once in a while. But I appreciate you staying around and watching this introduction of the NCC 1701C. Please, if you like what you see, hit that like button and subscribe. And if you really like what you see, hit that bell so you're notified when a new video comes out on the next update up there. So with that, I will say thank you, and this is the Sloppy Modeler signing off.